You're 19 years old. You live in the projects. You don't know what you're going to eat tomorrow. The only thing you're good at is driving. Driving fast. Driving without asking questions. Driving at night down unpaved roads with the headlights off and your heart in your throat. That skill lands you your first real job, moving packages from point A to point B. Nobody tells you what's inside. You don't ask. Ignorance is your employment contract. The boss notices you, not because you're special, because you're punctual. In a business where people die for showing up late, you always arrive 5 minutes early. That's enough to get promoted. They assign you to the personal fleet. Now you're driving armored trucks. Now you're looking at the face of the man who controls the city, the state, the entire country. He's short, heavy. He has a mustache and a smile that looks genuine right up until you stop being useful to him. He greets you by name. He asks about your mom. He gives you a gold chain. On your birthday, you think he's a good guy who sells bad things. You don't understand that he's a bad man who does good things to buy you. You rise fast. Faster than any corporate employee could dream. There are no quarterly performance reviews here, no feedback meetings. Advancement here is binary. Either you move up or they put you in the ground. From the wheel, you move to logistics. From logistics, you move to informal accounting. You learn to count money. A lot of money. So much money it stops feeling real. Stacks of bills piled in entire rooms, walls of cash, literally. The boss has a problem no CEO in the world would want, and that any economist would study with fascination. He has so much money, he doesn't know where to put it. He spends $1,000 a month just on rubber bands to bundle the stacks. He loses 10% of his annual earnings to bills that rot from moisture in underground stash houses. He loses more money to rats chewing through bills in the stash houses than you would ever earn in a lifetime of honest work. It's absurd. It's obscene. And you're right in the middle of that obscenity with a calculator and a notebook. Your job is simple in theory, brutal in execution. Move cash into properties without anyone asking questions. The boss buys everything that can be bought and a few things that technically aren't for sale. Apartment buildings, shopping centers, ranches with clandestine airstrips, cattle farms with more cows than people in entire municipalities, soccer teams, radio stations, car dealerships, pharmacies, laundromats. The irony of laundering money through actual laundromats never strikes you as funny. If it exists and it has a price, he buys it. Your role is to make sure the money flows without leaving a trace. You create shell companies. You open accounts in the names of frontmen. You pay bank officials to look the other way. You're 23 years old and you're moving more capital than some regional banks. Your mom thinks you work in imports. It's not entirely a lie. Life at the top is comfortable in ways you never imagined. You buy a house in the nice neighborhood, the one you used to look at from a distance as a kid thinking the people who lived there were from another planet. You have 3 imported cars, a watch worth more than the house you grew up in. You date spectacular women who never, ever, in no alternate timeline, would have looked at you back when you were living in the projects eating rice and beans 3 times a day. Your childhood friends ask you for favors. Some want jobs, some want loans. Some just want to stand close to the heat of power without getting burned. You get the minor positions in the organization. That's how it works. Loyalty is built with jobs and betrayal is paid with lead. You are loyal, absolutely loyal. For now. The boss decides to enter politics. He wants to be a congressman. He wants diplomatic immunity. He wants legitimacy. He wants history to remember him as a benefactor and not a murderer. And for one incredible, absurd, almost cinematic moment, he partially pulls it off. He builds entire neighborhoods for the poor, soccer fields with imported synthetic turf, churches with stained glass windows, schools with computers. People love him with a devotion that borders on religious. They call him Robin Hood. They paint murals of him. They write songs for him. You organize the events. You distribute the construction materials. You watch families genuinely grateful to move into houses that cocaine money built. Morality becomes liquid when you watch a happy child in a brand new home. Who paid for that house? A monster. Is the kid happy? Absolutely. The ethical math doesn't add up, and you decide to stop doing the calculations. But politics attracts attention. A justice minister starts investigating. Newspapers run exposés. The U.S. government applies pressure. Suddenly, the boss goes from Robin Hood to public enemy number one. And when the pressure builds, the boss's paranoia spikes like the temperature in a wildfire. He starts seeing traitors everywhere. Every week, someone disappears. Every month, bodies turn up. The hitmen work overtime. You sign the wire transfers that pay their fees. They're not hitmen. They're security consultants in your creative accounting. The administrative fiction is what lets you sleep at night. The first crack appears when they kill the minister. It wasn't a strategic decision. It was pure rage. The boss ordered it because the guy humiliated him on national television. And with that murder, everything changes. The entire world turns to look. Extradition. The word the boss fears most. They'd send him to an American prison where he can't buy guards, judges, or prosecutors. Where he has no power. Where he's just another Latino inmate with a number. He declares war. Literally, not metaphorically. War with a capital W and everything that implies. He sets off bombs in shopping malls. On planes. In streets full of innocent. People who had nothing to do with cocaine or extradition or anything. Children, elderly people, mothers doing Christmas shopping. You watch the news from the living room of a ranch while eating rice and chicken, and you recognize the amounts because you authorized them. $50 million for the government building bomb. $30 million for the hitmen targeting the presidential candidate. $15 million for the attack on the newspaper. Your ledger is stained with blood you never saw directly, but that you definitively, undeniably, documentably financed. Every receipt is a confession. Every figure is a criminal charge. This is where you start to have doubts, not out of morality. Let's be honest with yourself. You lost your morality years ago, somewhere between the 3rd million and the 10th funeral you didn't attend. You have doubts because of math, pure survival statistics. The boss is losing the war he started himself. You can see it in the numbers with the clarity that only an accountant can have. Security expenditures have tripled. Revenue dropped because the roots are compromised. The organization is bleeding out financially while it bleeds out literally. Every week, there are fewer people at meetings. Some are dead. Some are in prison. Some just didn't show up one day, and nobody asks why. You're on a sinking ship, and you have the map of where all the treasure is. That makes you valuable. That makes you dangerous. The contact arrives unexpectedly. A guy you know from legitimate business, a lawyer who handled the properties, invites you for coffee. The conversation is casual until it isn't. There are people interested in an orderly transition, he says. Orderly transition. What an elegant way to say betrayal. He explains that a group within the organization, along with certain government interests and a certain 3-letter agency from up north, are coordinating the boss's downfall. They need someone from the inside, someone who knows the numbers, someone who can deliver the accounts, the properties, the routes, someone exactly like you. You say no, automatically, like a reflex, as if loyalty were a muscle spasm and not a conscious decision. You leave that coffee shop with trembling hands and a churning stomach. You drive home checking the rearview mirror every 3 seconds, convinced they're already following you, that they already know that the conversation was recorded by the other side. You don't sleep that night, or the next, or the one after that. The offer floats in your brain like a corpse in a river. You can't stop seeing it, you can't pull it out, and the longer you stare at it, the more it contaminates you. If you say yes, you betray the man who pulled you out of the most absolute poverty, who gave your mom a house, who paid for your grandmother's surgery, who invited you to his table every Thursday like you were blood and not an employee with accounting responsibilities. If you say no, you go down with the ship, and the ship is sinking. 3 weeks later, you track down the lawyer. Is the offer still on the table? It's still on the table. You meet with men in gray suits who speak Spanish with American accents. They're agents. They don't tell you which agency. It doesn't matter. They offer you the full package: immunity, witness protection, new identity, relocation. In exchange, they want everything: every account, every property, every name, every route, every contact, every peso you recorded in 8 years of service. They want you to strip the entire operation bare. You agree. You sign papers. They photograph you. They give you a special phone. You are officially a traitor. The word tastes like bile in your mouth, but the alternative tastes like cemetery dirt. You start leaking information. It's the most terrifying thing you've ever done, and you've done things that warrant intensive therapy. Every document you secretly photocopy, every hard drive you burn in the bathroom at 2 a.m., every name you whisper in, 15-second calls from disposable phones you then snap in half and toss in different dumpsters, is a death sentence if you're caught. And in this organization, getting caught means they find pieces of you spread across different states. You work double. By day, you're the loyal accountant keeping the financial machinery running. By night, you're the mole dismantling that same machinery piece by piece. The cognitive dissonance is brutal. You have lunch with the boss on Thursdays. He tells you jokes. He asks about projects. You tell him everything's fine while wearing a microphone sewn into the lining of your jacket. Every shared laugh is a performance. Every pat on the back is a goodbye he doesn't know he's giving. The net closes in. The authorities begin to act on your information. Stash houses fall with tons of drugs inside. They freeze accounts in Switzerland, Panama, Miami. Properties get seized. The boss loses his mind. Someone is talking. An internal witch hunt begins. They kill 3 junior accountants, 2 lawyers, a cousin who had nothing to do with any of it but made the mistake of placing a suspicious call. Each execution moves you one step closer to being discovered. Every killing is one fewer name on the list of suspects, and you're on that list. Your American contact tells you to speed things up. They need the boss's location. They need to know where he sleeps, where he eats, who he talks to. You know part of that. You know the safe houses. You know his movement patterns. You know the radio frequencies he uses to communicate. You hand over everything. Every piece of information you provide is a nail in a coffin you're building with your own hands. The coffin of a man who called you son, who invited you to his family's Christmas, who held your newborn niece. Monsters have human moments. Those moments are the ones that haunt you at night. The final operation approaches like a storm you can smell in the air. They extract you with the surgical precision of people who have pulled informants out before. A normal Thursday, after lunch with the boss, he ordered the bandeja paisa. You barely touched your food because the adrenaline had your stomach locked shut. You get in your car, and instead of going home, you drive straight to the regional airport. A private flight on an unmarked prop plane takes you to a place you can't mention that you shouldn't know about, and that will be your temporary home for the next several months. You land with one suitcase and the certainty that your previous life just died. Your mom doesn't know where you are. Your friends think you vanished. Your girlfriend thinks you abandoned her. In a way, all of that is true. The man you were ceased to exist the moment you boarded that plane. You watch the downfall on television. It's surreal, almost unreal. Like watching a movie about your own life narrated by people who don't know you. The boss cornered in a middle-class neighborhood. The final chase across rooftops. The operation with helicopters and snipers. The shots that sound dry and final through the TV speakers. The body on a rooftop. The mustache. The blue shirt soaked through with red. The belly pressing through the fabric. The blood pooling into puddles that the cameramen film with obscene close-ups. The end of an era narrated by anchors and ties who never set foot in the projects, who never smelled the fear, who never counted bills with trembling hands at 3 a.m. You cry, not from joy, not from sadness. You cry because it's too much, because you helped kill him, because you loved him despite everything, because gratitude and betrayal can coexist in the same chest, and that makes you a kind of monster that psychology textbooks haven't cataloged. What follows is not freedom. It's a strange, gray version of purgatory with bad coffee and cable television. They give you a new identity, a name that isn't yours, and that sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud. A fabricated past invented by a bureaucrat who has never had to lie about who he is. A cover story so generic it looks like it came from a bad spy movie. You're a retired businessman from the textile industry. You imported fabrics. How thrilling. You live in a gray city where it rains too much and nobody knows you and nobody cares to. You work at something irrelevant. You have a small apartment. You drive a used car. The fall from the top is physical. You feel the vertigo every morning when you wake up in a bed that isn't yours inside a life you don't recognize. The trials begin. Your testimony is legal dynamite. You testify for weeks. Names, dates, figures, routes, properties, accounts. The prosecution loves you. The defense destroys you. They call you a rat, a traitor, a liar, an opportunist. All of it is true. Every insult lands precisely. You're a rat who betrayed his benefactor to save his own skin. There's no heroic narrative. You're not a vigilante. You're a calculating coward who chose to live. The truth hurts more than the lies you tell yourself before bed. Then the retaliation starts. Not against you directly. That would be too clean, too direct, too merciful for people who perfected cruelty as a form of communication. No, they go after yours. A second cousin turns up dead in a ditch with signs that the coroner describes clinically, but that you translate emotionally as torture. A childhood friend, the one who played soccer with you on the dirt road, disappears without a trace. Your uncle gets midnight calls with detailed descriptions of his daily routine. Your mom has to move 3 times in 1 year with a suitcase and terror sewn into her skin. The organization is wounded, but not dead, and the heirs to the throne have long memories and infinite grudges. Every nearby death is directly your fault. You didn't pull the trigger, but you pointed the direction. You carry invisible corpses on your shoulders every single day. Paranoia becomes your dominant personality, your defining trait, the lens through which you view absolutely everything. You check the locks 3 times before going to bed, 5 times if you heard a strange noise. You never sit with your back to the door in any restaurant, cafe, or waiting room. You change your route to work every day following a randomized system you designed yourself. You memorize the license plates of cars parked on your street. You have no new friends because you can't tell anyone who you really are, where you really come from, why you glance over your shoulder every 30 seconds like a hunted animal. Romantic relationships are impossible. How do you explain to someone that your real name is different, that your past is fabricated, that there are people in another country who would pay millions to know your location? You can't. So you live alone, you eat alone, you grow old alone. The years pass. The cartel splinters like a broken mirror. Each shard reflects the same image but distorted, smaller, sharper. New groups take control of the routes, the labs, the territories. The business didn't die with the boss. It just rebranded. The new bosses are worse in every measurable way. More violent, less charismatic. Without the informal code, the boss at least pretended to respect. The boss built neighborhoods for the poor. These ones build graves for anyone in the way. And you watch from a distance knowing that nothing you did stopped the machine. You just changed the operator. The coke keeps flowing, the money keeps circulating, the bodies keep piling up. Your betrayal was an event, not a solution. You write memoirs nobody can publish, notebooks in small handwriting and blue ink, stories that would make a federal prosecutor cry. You know which presidents received briefcases of cash in hotel rooms, which generals signed pacts on whiskey-stained napkins, which legitimate businessmen, the ones on the covers of business magazines smiling with perfect teeth, got their hands dirty, up to the elbows. That information is your perpetual curse, not your power. Your power died the day you stopped being relevant to both sides of the conflict. Now you're an inconvenient witness that everyone would rather forget. Sometimes you dream about the projects. About your mom young and cooking in a tiny kitchen that smelled like cilantro and propane. About the mangoes in the yard that fell ripe and burst against the dirt. About the barefoot soccer games on unpaved streets. About life before everything went irreversibly wrong, before you climbed into that first truck with sweaty hands and hunger as your only decision-making engine. You run the odds. If you had said no that day, you'd probably be a construction worker or a cab driver. Or you'd be dead in a less interesting way. Poverty kills too. It just does it slowly and without newspaper headlines. You don't know if you chose wrong or if you never had a real choice. Philosophers debate free will from comfortable offices. You debated it with a pistol on your hip and an accounting ledger in your hand. You are 52 years old. You live in an anonymous suburb of a city you didn't choose and will never learn to love. Your neighbor thinks you're a retired accountant. He's not far off. You count the days the same way you used to count the bills, mechanically, without feeling, knowing that everyone brings you closer to an ending nobody will celebrate. You're not a hero. You're not a villain. You're the collateral damage of your own story, the witness who survived the fire but inhales smoke every time he breathes. What you learned is simple and devastating. Loyalty to power is a trap. Betraying power is another trap. There is no exit door once you step into the room. There are only different ways of staying inside. The boss is dead. His heirs are in prison or dead. The agents who recruited you are retired and collecting pensions. The prosecutors wrote books. The journalists won awards. Everyone moved forward. Everyone built something from the wreckage. Everyone except you. You just survived. And surviving without purpose is the most silent sentence that exists. You look out the window. It's Tuesday. It's raining. You're not expecting anyone. You have no plans. You only have a fake name, a borrowed story, and the absolute certainty that betraying the most powerful man on the continent didn't make you free. It made you a ghost. And ghosts don't live. Ghosts only remain, trapped between what they were and what they can never be, counting the days in a life that technically already ended decades ago when you chose to board a plane and stop existing. That's what you are now. Nothing more, nothing less. An echo of decisions you can't undo. A number in a witness protection program. A success statistic in the war on drugs. But nobody counts the human cost of being a successful statistic. Nobody writes about the emptiness that's left when everything you knew how to do was count dirty money, and the only thing you count now are the cracks in the ceiling of an apartment that isn't even yours. This is your life. This is your reward. This is the consequence of saying yes the day they offered you a driver's job in a neighborhood where mangoes fell ripe from the trees and all you wanted was to eat.